Which games have mocked other games? Alice Madness Returns is a truly peculiar case of how a simple location within a game can turn into a very crude and quite hilarious mockery. To understand what happened here, we need to step back and comprehend the nature of two games that actually aim for the exact same thing but from completely opposite perspectives. On one hand, there was Double Fine Psychonauts in 2005, a game that viewed the human psyche as something colorful, chaotic, filled with dark humor and satire. On the other hand, American McGee with his Alice saga, which viewed those same mental landscapes as dark, gothic, visceral, and deeply disturbing. They were two completely different sides of the same coin, and both were recognized as legitimate auteur works. While Psychonauts was critically acclaimed, the problem was that nobody bought it. It was such a catastrophic commercial flop that it nearly bankrupted its original publisher and left the franchise in a limbo from which there seemed to be no return. They wanted to make a sequel, but given the disastrous performance of the first installment, it never materialized. In 2011, Alice Madness Returns was released, the sequel to the original Alice game directed by American McGee. McGee had also spent years trying to get EA to fund the new installment, and he finally succeeded. Alice got lucky with the sequel, while Psychonauts remained dead in the water. The exact reason isn't known, but it serves as the catalyst for what we are about to discover. In Chapter 4 of Alice Madness Returns, near the start of the level, there is a specific area that most players never find. It's a small, isolated room within the Queen of Hearts domain, specifically in a desolate corner of the decaying organic palace in that area. If you're curious enough to explore beyond the main path, you'll eventually reach a dismal, abandoned cell surrounded by walls of pulsating flesh and an atmosphere that fits the game's gothic horror perfectly. In the center of the room stands an elegant, classic armchair, and sitting completely motionless on that throne rests a skeleton. The skeleton is wearing a leather aviator helmet and huge padded goggles. If you've played Psychonauts, you'll immediately recognize those accessories. They belong to none other than Rasputin Aquato, the young psychic protagonist of Psychonauts. But here he is, dead, reduced to a skeleton sitting on that chair, deliberately surrounded by pure filth. This Easter egg mocks how poor Raz was left waiting for his sequel for so long that he aged and died. It's such a direct, crude, and bitter jab that is almost sad, as if the game were laughing about how Alice Madness Returns managed to get a sequel while Psychonauts couldn't. Here's the ironic twist to this story. Tim Schafer launched a massive crowdfunding campaign on Fig, raised millions of dollars, and was finally able to develop Psychonauts 2, which was released in 2021 under Xbox. The game was an absolute success, both critically and commercially. But Alice Madness Returns did not share the same fortune. After its release, its creator spent over a decade trying to convince Electronic Arts to fund a third installment called Alice Asylum. EA formally rejected the project permanently in 2023, leading McGee to announce his retirement from the gaming industry. So this joke aged like milk? Raz rose from his grave and came back to life, while Alice ended up buried in the limbo of EA's cancelled franchises. It's fascinating how, over time, the tables completely turned on that joke. Red Dead Redemption 2 is another hilarious case. Here we aren't talking about a joke aimed at another franchise, but a self-deprecating one. Rockstar Games, the very studio that made the mistakes, is poking fun at itself. To understand this, let me tell you what happened back then. When Grand Theft Auto 3 came out in 2001, it was a revolution. A completely open world and countless incredible features. But there was a problem with this game. Back then, realistically simulating water was technically very costly. So they made a radical design decision. The protagonist simply wouldn't know how to swim. If you accidentally fell off a dock or dropped off Portland Bridge, the screen went black and you instantly drowned. A year later, GTA Vice City arrived in 2002. Tommy Vercetti was the new protagonist, surrounded by heavenly beaches and ocean waters. You'd think that living literally in a coastal city, Tommy would know how to swim. But here's the ridiculous part. Tommy shared the exact same limitation. Despite being the lord and master of Vice City and surrounded by water, if the tip of his shoe so much as grazed the water, he died instantly. Basically, for many years, water was the kryptonite of GTA protagonists. This absurd feature didn't go unnoticed. Over the years, it became a legendary meme within the community, and competitors lost no opportunity to make fun of it. The most famous example was DRIV3R, which literally included a parody character named Timmy Vermicelli, who wore floaties around his arms as a direct jab at Tommy Vercetti's inability to swim. Rockstar finally solved the issue in 2004 with GTA San Andreas, where CJ could swim perfectly. But in 2010, Red Dead Redemption arrived, featuring a colossal Wild West map bounded by Mexico across the Rio Bravo. To prevent players from crossing prematurely into areas that the story hadn't unlocked yet, Rockstar made the exact same design choice they made in GTA 3 and Vice City. John Marston simply couldn't swim. If he stepped into deep water in a river or lake, his stamina drained in seconds and he drowned. Then in 2018, 8 years later, Red Dead Redemption 2 arrived. Arthur Morgan can fish, hunt grizzly bears with his bare hands, and of course, swim perfectly. He can cross any river or swamp without any trouble at all. But something special happens when you regain control of John Marston. You eventually take John to the exact same bodies of water where Arthur Morgan had just swum with complete ease and grace. And right at that moment, something happens. The instant he touches the water, John begins flailing frantically, splashing his arms in utter panic. His stamina bar drains instantly. Within seconds, if you don't get back to solid ground immediately, the screen darkens and John drowns. Rockstar implemented this as a direct self-mockery of their own hydrophobic protagonist from GTA 3, Vice City, and the first Red Dead Redemption, which is hilarious considering Rockstar laughed at themselves over something the community had already turned into a long-standing meme. Super Mario World 2. Yoshi's Island is another funny case. During the time Yoshi's Island came out, Nintendo and Sega were locked in the 1990s console wars. There's a long history behind this, but Nintendo and Sega genuinely despised each other back then. As fierce direct competitors, they seized every opportunity to throw trash at each other and declare the competition's products garbage. This led to countless commercials and direct insults targeting each other inside both companies. Sega had been running a relentless marketing campaign for years under the slogan "Sega does what Nintendo don't," which literally implied Sega could do what Nintendo couldn't. The mascot of this campaign was Sonic, an incredibly fast blue hedgehog who represented everything Sega wanted Nintendo not to be: speed, attitude, and edge. Basically, Sega marketed Sonic as cool and edgy, while casting Mario and Nintendo as games for babies. Nintendo, despite everything,
the Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
Get Joe Montana free, Pat Riley free, Buster Douglas free, Super Monaco GP free, or Collins free. What Nintendo
didn't sit back idly. In the West, studios like Rare responded with supreme hostility. In Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, they placed a trash bin with a sign that read, "No hoppers," filled with Sonic's iconic running shoes and Earthworm Jim's plasma gun, another competing character of that era. Essentially, they were saying, here's where the losers belong. In Yoshi's Island, they introduced an enemy that most players barely notice. It's called Hairy Hedgehog. It's a small enemy that appears in specific levels, such as an area named the Cave of Hairy Hedgehog. A bright blue hedgehog as a Mario game enemy. Who does that remind you of? Hairy Hedgehog is a full-on parody of Sonic, a bright blue hedgehog that runs rapidly back and forth across the screen, exactly like Sonic would. But when you actually try to defeat Harry, he turns out to be ridiculously easy to neutralize. An enemy that appeared fast and intimidating turns out to be a minor, flat, easily vanquished obstacle. Essentially, with Hairy Hedgehog, Nintendo mocked Sonic by making him look like a total joke. But Sega didn't sit back either. The irony is that they decided to respond in an even more direct way. At that time, a game called Sonic X-treme was in development, which was supposed to be the first fully 3D Sonic game for the Sega Saturn console. During production, Sega's marketing department cooked up a live-action promotional video featuring an actor dressed as a washed-up, depressed Mario who bitterly lamented on camera, crying about how his career had fallen into total failure, how his market relevance had completely vanished, and how his entire franchise was being crushed by the super cool Sonic. But the funniest part of all this is that Sonic X-treme never actually came out. Nintendo quietly launched the Nintendo 64 alongside Super Mario 64, while development on Sonic X-treme turned into technical development hell with massive internal disputes over which graphics engine to use. Developers endured extreme crunch, and ultimately, Sonic X-treme was cancelled. It never saw the light of day, and the promotional video mocking Nintendo aged terribly. This console war yielded many other instances of companies taking jabs at each other, but without a doubt, the Sega vs. Nintendo rivalry featuring Mario and Sonic remains one of the funniest we've seen in gaming history. Tell me, What did you think of these games that mocked other games? Which one did I miss? Leave it in the comments below.